Welcome to the Scale Model Club, and on this week's show, nice. Hello, welcome to the Scale Model Club, and carrying on this week with the Lancaster that we unboxed last week. Let's all start with the cockpit. Standard stuff. Cut the stuff from your sprue with your sprue cutters, give it a bit of a shave, bit of a tidy up, bit of a sand, and stick it to the other pieces. We'll speed this a little bit up in a little bit because I think we've all sort of seen how you fit bits together. Thanks everybody for joining. Hope you're all safe and well. Of course, this is part of the Remembrance Day diorama I'm building, and it's coming together quite nicely. Quite looking forward to seeing the end result. It's been a good model so far. Not much flash on any of the model parts, and everything is fitted together quite nicely. Haven't really decided on what I'm doing with the model though. It doesn't have standard bomb bay doors because obviously it's a dam buster, so it has the rigging for the bomb spinning device, which sat outside it, but I might leave that on. Well, I'll have to leave that on because I don't have bomb bay doors that come with the kit, because I think it'll just be a nice little touch having a dam buster as a Remembrance Day aircraft. As you can see, I'm using the extra thin Tamiya glue. It's nice because you can just dab it on. It runs around all the recesses. You can just stick your bit of plastic on. For some of the bigger pieces, because this is quite a big model, especially for me to build, although it is only 1/72 scale, it's a big aircraft. And some of the bigger bits I have used my REVELL contact glue, which is a little bit thicker, a little bit longer to go off, but it's a lot easier to work with when you're working with larger parts. You just still have to be a little careful with your fingers so you don't get it all over the model and it melts fingerprints into it. It's nothing that a bit of sanding can't sort out, but so this is still the cockpit. There's quite a nice little cockpit. You don't see much of it, but I've built it all. You get a little table, navigator station. There's the radio station. The two guys that sit there. Pilot seat is in there. This model doesn't come with a pilot, I must say, and because I'm having the vehicle in a flying situation, I've whipped a pilot out of another kit. But what I have done is I've painted him in modern pilot colours. So he's got like a white helmet on, like a flying helmet with the goggles and stuff, rather than flying cap. Just because I want it to look like more of a modern pilot flying it today, rather than somebody flying it of yesteryear. So this is the floor. This is what everything gets attached to, all your tables and radio sets and everything, cockpit and that kind of thing. There's no co-pilot seat. I've not built many Lancasters, don't know a lot about them, haven't really looked into it, but I'm assuming there isn't a co-pilot seat, or was it removed specifically for the dam buster because he would more than likely be the gun aimer or the bomb aimer. Not sure. So there's just one seat up front. So I only needed to find one pilot because you can't really see the rest of it. So the pilot seat, you get a couple of choices. I chose the one with the seat belts and the padding on. You do get some seatbelt decals. So what I've done is I painted the seat belts on the pilot seat, and then I put the decals actually on the radio operator and the navigational officer's seats. Not that you're ever going to see them, but that seemed a more logical way of putting it. So that's the table going down. So there we have, we've got the table, pilot seat, we've got the dashboard, steering column, everything's gone down. I must admit I do want to do another one of these models, so I will have to search one out a little bit later on, because there's so much detail in this model and I'm not using half of it, mainly because my aircraft is in a flying position. So these two bits are for the radio operator and for the navigational officer. Now you glue two bits together and then glue them onto the table, so I thought that seemed a bit needless, but it's the only bit I really had an issue with, and didn't really have an issue with it. Lined it all up nicely and it all fitted together, so didn't really have a problem with it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you push that notification button to see more of my amazing videos. Thanks very much to everybody that does watch them and does subscribe. Thanks very much for all the people that have joined me on Instagram as well. I'm just learning the Instagram thing like I'm still learning the YouTube thing, so bear with me. If only you could cut bits off Instagram, sand it a little bit and then glue it onto another bit, I'd understand it. Right, so this piece here, this is quite handy. That piece goes across the middle of the chassis, shall we call that piece, and it ends up being a stay for the wings, which is good because you need them because they're big old wings. So that sits across there and then pokes out the fuselage so the wings can fit on it. There's one at the back as well for the tail fins. But quite a nice little design. Just keep that in place with a peg, and we can stay upside down, so we can put the the sides of the bomb bay in. Now I did these. I painted all of it and there's absolutely no point. There's a couple of little holes down there that need to have two bits of clearing. Don't worry about it, you don't see them. So, I mean, not on this kit because obviously you're fitting the bomb bay from the dam buster and that just covers the whole thing up. But it's nice, you see, once you've painted that and you've covered it in your wash and cleaned it all off, it looks nice. It's nicely detailed. It's a shame it doesn't come. I mean, it's a shame it doesn't come with some bomb bay doors, so you can have that kind of option. And I think it's probably the only thing that's really missing from it. But everything fits nicely together. I've had a lot of fun building it. And it is a nice aircraft. It's up there, isn't it, with your Hurricane, Spitfire, Lancaster, P-51, P-47, P-40s. It's just, there's just something about these these 1940s war horses. Right, so these are the tail fins. What I did was I skipped ahead because I built the cockpit. I've put a few little bits on the fuselage there, cleaned those up, and the next bit is painting. So while I had the evening here and I was already gluing, I thought I'd do the tail fins. So this is one of the tail fins, basically sticking the two parts together, and then you've got the upright part to go on there, and I also stuck the wings together before the actual instructions asked me to, but it's all to do with how I'm going to paint it. So we'll just hold those together with a peg. What I ended up doing is once I'd glued these together, I put the uprights on. Once I fitted them to the fuselage when it was together, because I don't think I filmed it, is I had to put a little piece of tape across the top just to hold them in the right position, because they didn't quite sit where I wanted them to. But yeah, that's the I don't even know what you call those bits. So I cut those off, gave those a sand. They clipped into place quite nicely, just click and we're done. So I just ran a bit of glue along the seam, let that soak in, and that's one side done. Left that to dry and did the other side. This video will take us up to priming. So it may skip ahead a little, but it's nothing that we haven't covered before in any of the other videos, and it's I think it's only a bit of masking tape and a couple of bits of foam. So yeah, I cut the wings. The next thing was the wings, so I cut the wings off, glued those together, and then I'm going to attack the engines. Now this is what I say, it's a bit of a shame, but this kit comes with Merlin engines to fit inside the engine cowlings, and you can obviously fit the engine in, paint it, cut out the engine cowling and have someone work on it, or you can see inside, which looks great, I must admit. But obviously because mine's flying, I've had the wings up and the undercarriage up out of the way, so I haven't needed to fit any of that on. But which is why I definitely want to come back to the kit, because it's such a good kit for REVELL with so much detail. I haven't actually looked at the Spitfire, at the Airfix version. I might do, but I must admit I have really enjoyed building this REVELL one. So this is the first one. I tried this one with the extra thin glue, stuck it together. It worked fine, don't get me wrong, it was absolutely fine, but I just felt that it grabbed a little bit too quick, and you couldn't move it, because it's such a big thing to get it all in the right space, because you'll find you get one side all lined up, and then when you turn it over, the other side's miles out of the way. So, and the Tamiya glue just grabbed it all a little bit too quick. So on the other wing, I used the REVELL contactor glue, which is just as good. Brilliant stuff. And you get the little nozzle, so you can be really accurate with it. Tell you what, I had to get hold of that old peg bag. Look, I do like a peg. I know a lot of people use masking tape, but you can't beat a peg. So here we go, straight on to the painting. Didn't put any undercoat on, just thought I'd first off chuck all the paint down the side of the airbrush. I hate doing that. and I thought I'll just brush over it, give it a light coat to start with, so a little bit like a undercoat. Even just with, because the plastic's black, with just a quick coat, it looked quite nice. It looked sort of quite shadowy and dark. So I gave that a blast. I gave the insides of the fuselage a blast, so we could then get to the point where we could stick this fuselage together and add some other bits to it. I needed to get the paint on the inside of the fuselage first, also because we've got a lot of clear parts that go down it for little windows. So yeah, those bits there at the bottom there, didn't really need to paint any of that because you don't see any of it, but I didn't know that at the time. And the paint I'm using for this is Tamiya. It's watered down 50/50 with Tamiya thinner. And it is the XF78 cockpit green, which I tend to use for all the English cockpits. It's quite a nice colour. It's a little bit light, but that's fine because you're then going to put, well, I'm then going to put a dark brown wash on it, so it darkens the colour down to a reasonable colour. And then managed not to chuck it all down the side of the airbrush, which is nice. And that's the cockpit and the fuselage done. I think I went over it all again, just like a quick rasp over to cover anything you might have missed. I did the same thing with the cockpit. Next thing is to let all this dry so that you can put the wash on. The wash I'm using it was actually a dark earth wash, which I think was a little bit too dark. I couldn't find my I've got a brown wash that works with green, which is a little bit lighter, which I quite like, but I went with this one. And as you can see, it just almost turned the whole thing brown. But I thought it'll be alright. We'll let that dry for a few seconds, a few minutes, and then we'll give it a rub over the cotton bud to see if we can rub most of it off. This is also a enamel wash, so you need a little bit of white spirit to clean your brush. So yeah, like I said, it almost immediately I then rubbed over it, and it literally took off most of the glue, most of the wash, and left it all in the corners. And I actually really liked the end result I had on it. I don't know if you can really see it, but it looked okay. It looks very grubby, very old, very used. After I did this, which I don't think I've got on camera either, so I'm not doing very well this week, I then dry brushed that with XF78 again. So, and dry brushing, I'll do a little video on it once. You dip your brush in paint and you wipe most of it off on a rag, and you're left with a tiny bit of paint on your brush, and you then quickly just rub it over like you're doing with the over, and what it does is it picks out all the high pieces and paints them a lighter colour. So it just makes them pop out a little bit. I'll do a little video on that kind of thing. I might do a whole one on just like a cockpit rather than the whole aircraft. But I wouldn't say I'm rushing this one a little bit, but I'm trying to get this one done, obviously, because I am on a deadline with this one, and I'm not good with deadlines. I'll probably be late anyway. So I did that with the cockpit too. So the cockpit's been covered in the brown. I've wiped it all off. And the next thing is some decals for the cockpit. So what we have here in the little square dish is some warm water, and you cut out the decal from your sheet with your sharp knife. Mind your fingers, everybody. I then use, I've got some reverse tweezers, so as you push them together they open. When you let go of them they hold shut, so they hold the decal in the tweezers. Dip it in your water. You want 10 to 20 seconds in the water. This is only a small decal. The bigger the decal, the longer you need to leave it. I then pop it on a piece of tissue, because you don't really want your bench getting all wet. So the next thing you grab, obviously that's the part the decal's going on. Use a brush just to make sure that it moves around and slides on, so it'll slide off the back. This is Mark Fit from Tamiya. A little bit on the surface before you're going to go, and then slide that off the backing sheet onto the fuselage that's got the Mark Fit on it, and that will sink down nicely. While you've got the Mark Fit underneath it, it will slide around a bit, so you get it just where you want it. A little dab after you're finished, and that will sink down nicely. So the next thing is the windows all along the inside, and what I used to stick these was a little piece of PVA glue. So I've got myself a little cocktail stick there and a little bit of PVA glue in my thingy. Pop a little tiny bit of PVA glue on the place where you want the clear part to go, and just glue it on as normal. The only thing you've got to watch out for is the PVA glue does take a couple of hours to dry, so glue your stuff on and then come back to it in a bit later on. All that kind of clear glues, they all take a lot longer than standard glue, so give it a bit of time before you come back to it. So I think we're all ready. Everything's painted, everything's been washed, cleaned, dry brushed. I've stuck one half the fuselage and the cockpit together there. Like I said, I've put the little stay in for the back to help the rear tail, and then I'll just run the contacts around, like I said, because it's thick and it doesn't run anywhere, so where you put it along the edge of the fuselage, it'll stay on the edge of the fuselage. And I just found it a lot easier to work with on a bigger fuselage. It's a good applicator. The only problem I have is that they do clog up, but I have been told that you can, if you run the nozzle under a lighter, it'll clear the blockage, but obviously I don't want to tell everyone to play with fire. So I pop the two fuselages together. That went really well. The tail bit slipped through, push, and everything just, it clipped right into place. All I need now is another 25 pegs to hold it all together. There's that massive bomb bay that these Lancasters had. And obviously that little hole there where my fingers are would be where the radar dome would be, but obviously I'm going to blank that off because they never had them on the Dambusters. As well as that's the hole at the top there, the round hole is for the top turret, which also won't be there because the Dambusters took them out to save weight. So what I'm going to do is mask up the canopy and fit that on so we don't get any paint on the cockpit. I've got a bit of foam in the front and in the back, and I have actually used some Maskol, which I'll show you in the next video, to mask up the side windows because they're a bit easier. And that's a liquid latex, so you put it on, it goes off, paint it, you pull it off, its job's good. But I'll show that in the next video. Thanks everybody for watching, thanks for liking and subscribing, and if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe. Put the thumbs up button, that'd be nice, or thumbs down if you don't like it. Obviously I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. So these are the engines and the wings. So you see me put the wings together. So like I said, what I've done is you just glue the two fuselages of the engine housing together, and then glue them onto the wing, and then you glue the... Now what you would have done is, if you wanted the undercarriage on, there's a lot of stuff to go in there. There's a lot of struts, stays, struts and everything to hold the undercarriage up, which I'm not going to use because I'm having it in flight. And also, like I said, the engines aren't in there. But it really starts to come together and look like a Lancaster. Now, even if you're just holding the wing there, it's you can't deny which plane that's off of. But they fitted nicely. There's a little bit of filling to do on there because the engines don't seem to just quite reach the wing. But it's not a major problem. What I'm going to do is undercoat the whole thing first so I can see where all the problems are. Because being black, you can't see any problems. You can't see where it hasn't lined up or where you need to sand, or because it's just all black. So held it in place. Ran the Tamiya extra thin over it, and it stuck. So you slide the wing onto one side, which is obviously was a little bit trickier than I thought, so I gave up and did the other side. And once I'd got that side on, look, there we go. We did sort out the other side and slide it on, and it went on nicely. And we have our Lancaster ready for an undercoat, and that's the piece of tape you can see at the back to hold the wings right. But thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hello, all cooler aircraft. I'm going into attack.